Quite a lovely little bit of personality to Bomber.
Up in the top left corner, currently down 0-1, hoping for a miracle or an amazing play in game number 2. It's Complexity's Minigun.
And spawning down in the bottom left-hand corner, currently 1 game up in this series, representing StarTale. Give it up for Bomber.
I just like the fact that the way Bomber has dealt with all the problems that, Terrans were complaining for so long that it's too difficult to beat the ultra late game Protoss, with all the upgrades and the Colossus and the Templar. And suddenly, Bomber was one of the first ones to do it. Just really said, well, wait a minute, what if I just attack him a lot in the mid game? Oh, wait, Protosses are weak in the mid game. Oh, and then all of a sudden, when the Protoss is at 3-3 and that max Colossus army and has Templar, it's a 5-base Terran versus a 3-base Protoss. That is what you gain by being aggressive in the mid game, ignoring all the times where you get nice wins like we saw in this first match. All the other times you just get upgrade advantages, you get extra expansion advantages because your mid-game aggression is just ripping time right out of the lungs of the Protoss.
Yeah, and I mean, from game number 1 there, we saw Minigun being able to take a very, very quick third. Now, that opens up the window for Bomber to start that drop aggression a little bit earlier than it would normally be. Now, most Terrans don't like dropping Protoss on 2-base because they're always able to cover the angles at any given point in time. Minigun was kind of spreading himself a little bit thinly there by taking that third and allowing that aggression to occur there. So he was kind of out of place and out of time, really. So for now, we'll be scouting out here to be able to have a little bit of a look around, see what's going on. Interestingly enough, where is Minigun going with this probe? Well, checking for some hidden barracks, potentially?
I mean, there is a really fun play that you can do where you build a robotics facility right here with a warp prism and then run up to the high ground and just do a 4-zealot drop and then a 4-zealot warp in. But right now, Minigun making this first zealot a little bit of an unnecessary move if he can identify that his opponent is going for an early expand, which interestingly, Minigun has not identified this, but against Bomber, I think it's one of those things that you can literally just expect without scouting.
Yeah, as for now, Bomber having a little bit of a look around, seeing just a pretty standard build here from Minigun. So he does Chrono Boost out that Stalker. Always nice to have that Zealot and Stalker out, and it's always very, very important as well to importantly, get that Zealot out to be able to make sure your opponent doesn't throw that Engineering Bay down at your natural if you want to go for a 1 gateway expand. That is looking very, very predictably common here from Minigun.
And of course, Bomber wants to kill off that Destructible Depot as quickly as he can. There's the sort of tapered timing on these barracks, the single refinery. I mean, Bomber has been doing this exact build in every tournament I've seen him in the last few months. Such a reliable way to play. And now Minigun waltzes right on up. He's maybe going to get the SCV. Only takes a little bit of main health damage. Put the 1 gate expand up for Minigun. An early assimilator like this, help him get that sentry count up nice and high, but I'm hoping that Minigun either goes for a fast robo, maybe do some sort of big Colossus push, or maybe just goes for the double upgrades, the way you were talking about earlier. Something that is not gateway focused. Yeah,
something that gateway focused really did not lend itself too well to what we were seeing out of Bomber there. And for now, I mean, he's throwing down those extra 2 gateways. Nexus is on the way as well. But, I mean, that little poke that Minigun went for earlier, he really saw what he wanted to see. The fact that there was an expansion down. So, I mean, he's going to be considering probably the same build from Bomber at this point.
Bomber, despite the fact of all the predictability, it's the timing that makes Bomber's build so good. Minigun now throwing down the robotics facility. This is looking a little bit more standard. Would have loved to see just 1 forge thrown down right now. Just a single freaking forge. So that way he can begin going for sentries, immortals, these types of units. Build up the big power beefy things. And again, de-emphasize things like stalkers and zealots. Right now with 1 sentry and 1 zealot up, this is actually kind of an interesting position for Minigun. He's getting very early gas geysers in his expansion. And with just 2 sentries, he's going to have plenty of gas to do something big in mid-game.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see a very, very quick Robo Bay here from Minigun. It's a play that can catch Terrans off guard, and Bomber... but then again, Bomber showed that his Staff Pot wasn't too late in that first game, so it wouldn't have a vast amount of success, because there we go. The factory is now on the way. He's getting that Observer on the way as well here to be able to scout out exactly what's going on. And from here, I mean, it's really, Bomber can really do anything on this bio play.
Yeah, the cool key that Bomber does is it's around 8:30. He has enough minerals to do the 2 barracks that, again, I very much so anticipate that he'll do. Or he can even get a command center if he's reading his opponent as a little bit too passive, which is totally what Minigun's doing right now. Double forge upgrade for Minigun. Probably will end up seeing a robotics bay in a moment here. Minigun, excellent micro there on that one stalker. That's really easy to lose, but as these observers float in, this is the really terrible part about going up against Bomber. Most of the time you're looking for like 3 barracks play, or you're looking for an expansion, or maybe some early engineering bays. But when you hop into Bomber's base, you're just going, oh my god, he's getting everything so fast, right? There's nothing useful for you to see in the main base. It's this sickeningly fast timing, but we haven't seen those extra barracks yet. There they are.
Awesome stuff. And what Minigun just saw there with his observer in his opponent's base wasn't a whole lot in terms of tech, but he sees that his opponent is taking the precautions to already shut down potential plays later on. Putting these supply depots around the edge extremities of his base here means that he can just spot drops that little bit quicker from Warp Prism play, or even, you know, some kind of air play that would come along, which would be very unpredictable in this matchup at this point. But, you know, anything or everything could come out.
Observers continuing to be in production for Minigun. This is kind of a cool answer. In that unit tab, we actually see 3 observers out for Minigun right now. He's leaving one right at the front. This is such a cool position. This will help him see if there's any medevacs going to reinforce the army. He can even see if there's Vikings in production. Another observer to be able to check if there's a drop coming in at the back. And the final, most important observer poking outside the front while still having a little bit of room to retreat to high ground if need be.
Yeah, I think Minigun here, then the transition from game 1 to game 2 is playing, well, initially he's playing to the map to a certain degree. Cloud Kingdom is one of those maps that you can secure your third really, really quickly because of the way in which, you know, the 2 ramps operate if you're able to get the right composition out at that point in time. Now, he hasn't taken his third just yet here, just relying on this tech on the 2 bases, just wanting to stabilize. And from there, already has that +2 armor on the way, which we were talking about in the break between the game 1 and game 2. Really, really going to lend itself very nicely against this very similar push to what we saw from Bomber in game number 1.
Minigun splitting things up in the typical fashion. Stalkers at the back, everything else at the front. And now it looks like Bomber, trying to go for a split. And just as Bomber has that spread of all those supply depots in the main, we see the pylon spread at the front is looking very good. And Bomber's going to be doing the same trick that we saw in the last game. Does Bomber see the observer there?
Well, he was, Bomber was able to spot that Colossus, that's for sure. And for now, you can guarantee he's going to start that Viking production straight away. And that gets that shut down. So nice little move there by Minigun.
I almost wish that Minigun had actually just held back.
Yeah.
That he had just invited it up. And now suddenly Minigun has gotten to get to the mid-game where we have Blink 2-2 coming up. Of course, Minigun wants to have a third base up, as it's pretty difficult to just keep going on 2 base when you're just spending all this gas. But weirdly, Minigun can afford to have a delayed third base, because soon enough, Minigun won't need to spend gas anymore. All his upgrades are done. All his buildings will be done. He'll just have a ton of money to be able to go macro crazy. After this 3-3 gets started, you can see as much as 6 more gateways added on for Protoss.
Yep, and they can start working in some very, very interesting unit compositions there, going up to those High Templars, maybe even adding on Dark Shrine later on in order to be able to just try and take control of the middle of the map. Really slows Terran down from actually pushing out across the map as well, forcing all those scans. A little bit of wasted opportunity cost there in itself. But for now, Minigun with that third on the way here. But Bomber's push out was nice to begin with. He just, you know, secured the third behind that. Sorry, couldn't do any damage. Well, I'll just go home and have my lovely, lovely third up.
Minigun continuing to get some stalkers, not a ton. He has 7 out right now. Most are here. Does not have all the defense that he needs at the back of his base, but with this one observer and the extended gateway count, he can easily do a warp in at the back if he needs to. It looks like Blink is just now wrapping up. No doubt charge, level 3 upgrades to come. Minigun's trying to see if there's a possible opportunity to do some sort of pressure. There's Bomber with a clairvoyant scan, but a little bit too early.
Well, he actually picked off an observer with that, with the 3 Vikings, which is a very, very nice little pick off there by Bomber. Being able to spot that and chase that down, very useful. There's 1 observer left on the field here for Minigun, so he's going to be able to need that later on as the Ghosts are now in production. And if you don't have an observer with your army, sometimes that can get very, very dicey indeed.
Yeah, that's actually what Thorzane does, where he goes mass Viking, mass Ghost.
Yeah.
And then scans just to pick off the observer, and then he cloaks the Ghost, and he can even pick off Colossus with the freaking Ghost. In the meantime, we see that this is what makes the late game army so strong and yet so flimsy as Terran. 55 Marines, 3 Ghosts, and there's only 60 workers for Bomber. He has almost no ability to follow this up. Again, he's all mid-game. He is just devoting everything to this attack right here, and there's not even enough time to get 3-3 or Storm.
Now Charge is on the way, and it's going to be finishing up in just a second. That's going to help Minigun in this defense here, but Bomber right now almost on the verge of being maxed out.
Minigun.
He's going to try and drop some EMPs. He is able to hit 1 or 2 of those sentries right now, though. The Zealots with that charge kicking in there. Needs to micro back as best he can do. The Vikings actually able to rip apart that Colossus count very, very quickly. There's very little gateway force left here for Minigun as Bomber is ripping him apart.
God, Bomber is just so good at getting these killer mid-games. 2-1 upgrades versus the 2-2. Picks off the reinforcing pylon and attempted warp in, but Bomber turns around. He picks it off again. Bomber is very low on health on these units, and there's the GG. Bomber looks absolutely indestructible in that matchup, Pilaris.
That was a different Bomber to what we saw yesterday. That was a Bomber coming in with a little bit more rest, a bit more confidence after that open bracket, and really, really tearing the Protoss a new hide. That was pretty brutal there for
tearing it a new hide. What a saying. Is that a Britishism?
I think actually that's an Australianism.
Oh, or
maybe. I'm not quite sure, to be honest.
Cool. Your isms from everywhere after that matchup. I mean, Minigun, frustrated after that series, but I mean, that's one of the things that actually blows my mind about watching Bomber play. You see that match and you just think, well, what could you have done? I mean, there were so many units in that attack force, and what did we see Minigun do? He went for that really fast 1-1, the really fast 2-2 right on the heels, chrono boosted it like crazy, but Bomber still found a window where Bomber was at 2-1 when his opponent was at 2-2. The 3-3 getting close to done for Minigun, but not seconds away. It's like the most perfect timing window that Bomber could have possibly attacked in.
Yeah, and when you say, you know, what more could I have done, there wasn't really any major aggression there coming from Bomber. He put his opponent on a little bit of a defensive posture after seeing that move out was coming, and there was always the potential of the drop in the back, but he never did any direct damage from there. So Minigun, you know, with the little bit later third than his opponent, Bomber just macroing up from there on, and found himself just that lovely little kind of opening.
So it does put Bomber as 3-1 in the group, Minigun as 0-4. Still 1 more round to go. Super pumped to know what's going on in the remainder of the event, because right now, again, Elfie, Bomber, Slivko, and Grubby are all 2-1 in the group. I just got word that Slivko is currently up 1-0 against Grubby. Kind of a surprising result, as you know, Grubby is so good in the PvZ matchup, but this is really going to demonstrate that there's a ton of up-and-comers.
Yeah. And I think that Group C, out of looking at all the groups, people would consider like Group C, I would say in inverted commas, the weakest group. But realistically, all of these groups are absolutely insane. You know, the level that we've already seen here today has been fantastic, and I'm sure we're going to be seeing some more epic games on the way.